Welcome everyone to the CoinRock show. We have a very cool guest coming up in about 20 minutes. We're going to be talking a lot of Bitcoin today. In the meantime, welcome to the news here. Let's do a quick review of the news. Hope everyone's doing well. It's a pretty slow news day today, guys. We tried to pull up some headlines for you guys, but to be honest, there's not much happening in the market overall. Bitcoin down about 2%, and thank you for I can see the likes here on social. Let's push this out in the groups. And again, one of these days, right? One of those like choppy, rangy days. I'd say that ETH has been doing pretty much the best overall over the last week or so. But a kind of a choppy day, hovering between 110 and 107. Ooh, what is in my contacts? All right. So yeah, not much happening, honestly. I think that there's a lot of bullish news when it comes to institutions, stable coins, and the law. So everything that that you guys love, of course. Basically non-degen stuff today. And yeah, Bitcoin at 107, ETH at 2,700, Solana at 158. Everything's been again ranging, although I think this is a good range. I'd much rather be ranging around the 102K to 110K than hovering around the 80K BTC. Not much news today. Pulled up some of the headlines here. So welcome to everyone. We will be joined in about 20 minutes. We'll be joined by Chris, and we'll be talking about Bitcoin and retirement. So actually very excited to get into into a very Bitcoin heavy conversation today. As you guys know, we try to bring you very interesting guests, amazing guests from all walks of life, real builders, investors, analysts, macro experts. We've had big names on the show. We've had newcomers to the show in the sense that, building behind the scenes, a lot of, we also want to give a voice to people doing interesting things, but without much exposure, or people who are not used to being on a lot of shows, but who are actually building interesting things. Today we have, like I said, Chris Kline, and that's going to be really around saving, Bitcoin, and retirement. So before that, let's have a look at some of the headlines here in the news. This is on CoinRock Media. This I thought was very funny. This is 5 hours ago. This is the state of crypto, by the way. Look at this. Elon Trump. So remember last week there was this feud, right? This fight, this online fight between Trump and Musk. A lot of people debated, gave their opinion on if it was a real fight, a real disagreement. And initially, on day one, I believe, it was kind of brushed under the rug. And then I think day two, someone from the White House basically came out saying that, hey, yes, it was a major argument between Scott Bessent, who's basically who runs a lot of or at least who has been extremely vocal on, the debt, of course, trade, and tariffs, and very close to basically Trump's number one financial advisor, and head of the, not Treasury, but is he head of the Treasury? Secretary of Lutnick is Commerce. What does Besson do exactly? Secretary of, Treasury. Yeah. And apparently Scott Bessent and Musk got into like a physical fight. Not a good look, of course, when you want to kind of appease the world and show the world that you have your shit together. Not a good look. And so, of course, at that point, being Trump, you have to take a side. You have to uh, to pick a side, and so he picked Bessent's side. Apparently, again, this is all from reports coming out of the White House. You can find this on Twitter from pretty credible sources who have reported uh, over the years quite credible um, White House accounts. So Trump is out temporarily, at least, and so yesterday, Elon Trump truce sparks rally in Dogecoin and ETH. I mean, it's a bit of a joke, right? I mean, let's take a step back here. ETH that's one thing, right? But Doge rallying on the back of a relationship between Trump and Musk improving, it is what it is. I don't think we there's a lot of there's a lot of there's a lot of things that are not very serious in this crypto industry and others that are very serious. Talk about stable coins. I think stable coins are one of the very top use cases when it comes to crypto, and rightfully so. We talked about, we had several guests on the show here who work directly with stablecoin issuers. We had the co-founder of Tether on the show. We had the builders when it comes to Bitcoin payments on the show, and stablecoins allow people to literally put food on the table, buy bread for their families. So it is a very serious thing in countries with extremely high inflation in South America, for example, also in Africa. And that I think is really one of the best use cases when it comes to crypto. When you see this, though, Dogecoin is back in the spotlight after a surprise political tech development triggering a sharp price rally. The meme coin jumped over 6% on the day. The catalyst, a rare public concession from Elon Musk, who reportedly issued a private apology to Trump, signaling a truce behind the two influential figures. We talked about this the other day, right? This is a lose-lose scenario, right? These fights are this is like kindergarten. It's extremely retarded to have two extremely powerful people fighting, literally, like in the same country, in the White House, who overall want the same goals for the country, which is to, you know, um, make sure that the that the U.S. doesn't trigger World War III, and that there is peace. And I think there's much bigger things to agree on than things to disagree on. So when you take a step back, I think if Trump really apologized, I think it's great. Someone has to, and I don't think it's the president of the United States. Look, if you're the president, right, would you apologize? Honestly, I mean, I wouldn't. I'm the president. This is my White House. I make the rules. I put my cabinet together. I put my group together. Musk is in the group, and so it is, of course, up to Musk to apologize in this case, especially if the reports coming out over the weekend were true, and someone has to come to the table and say, hey, let's put this. There's more. We can work on more productive things, right? Than arguing and getting into apparently fistfights. So the story goes that Scott Bessent actually, so Elon had like a cut on his eye last week, and apparently that's Scott Bessent's work. So got into a fist fight, which again is, I mean, extremely stupid. Much better things to do than actually like, like punch someone in the White House. But maybe Musk asked for it. So again, God knows. The only people who know are those who were in the room. We don't know. We're only hearing, yes, from sources, credible sources. But again, the only people who really know were in that room That being said, Doge rallying off the back of an apology from Musk, not exactly what you thought crypto was going to be 15 years ago, with crypto rallying on the back of Musk, or not crypto, Dogecoin rallying off the back of a Musk apology. But it is what it is. I thought that was funny. Oh, there you go. That's the tweet. I regret some of my posts. Yes, it means completely unnecessary, right? Even if Musk was right, unnecessary. Like, look, other countries were laughing. I'm sure you've seen the tweets. Other countries were actually trolling the U.S. And saying like, "Hey, we'll offer asylum to Musk if he comes over." And if he's expelled from the U.S. So, it's unnecessary. There's so many bigger things and bigger issues in the world, and more productive things they can work together on than look, it's being a president of anything is a no-win position. Anything you do, you'll get criticized. So being if you read biographies of former US presidents, anything and everything they do, they get extreme levels of at best discontent, at worst hate, and some even die. So not a fun job. But Doge rallying is actually funny. Let's have a look at this. This is where a lot of the focus here is when it comes to institutions. Senate advanced a genius stablecoin bill with strong support. The U.S. Senate has taken a major step forward in stablecoin regulation. We talked about this. We've been talking about stablecoins for months here on the show. The bill had previously faced delays due to political hesitation surrounding Trump's influence on crypto policy. However, momentum returned this week as Senate Majority Whip made a forceful case for the bill and basically agrees with Trump's vision of turning the U.S. into the crypto capital of the world. This is great. Great for your bags, great for crypto, great for the industry overall. This is what you want to see. You don't want to see what Biden and Gensler were doing for years, right? So this is very bullish. Again, even though we're not seeing extremely super bullish price action, Bitcoin's doing okay, but a lot of basically outside of Bitcoin, even majors have been choppy for the last few months. Of course, Warren, Senator Elizabeth Warren, she's always in the news for the wrong reasons. One of the many reasons is if you look at the salary these senators make, right? So at around $250,000, and her net worth is close to $80 or $100 million. So the question is how? I mean, if you're making $250,000 gross, you have to pay tax, living expenses. Yes, they do have some benefits, but how do you jump from $250 in salary to a net worth of close to $100 million? I mean, there's a lot of stories and a lot of theories behind her wealth, but it is weird. And of course, she's always this crypto bear. She literally built an anti-crypto army during the Biden administration, and that's why so many projects had so many issues with even with simple just banking. A lot of projects and companies were debanked thanks to Elizabeth Warren. So, but of course, she always has to open her mouth when it comes to crypto, probably because her donors don't like it. Simple as that. I mean, look, I saw that. Have you seen that meme that says, politicians should wear? You know how F1 drivers have the sponsors on their what do you call them, the suits? Politicians should wear the same so we can all see who funds them. So you can actually see who funds every politician publicly, at least. So a lot of it is in the public domain. Bitcoin sentiment hit 7-month high, so 112K. This was yesterday, I believe, with a drop down on about 2%. So hit about 112. Not about, it hit 112. So this is good. Look, I mean, there's no real bullish catalyst. So teasing its 112K all-time high the past couple of days. Retail is more bullish, of course. What's interesting about the crypto market in general is just like how fast things turn both ways, right? We talked about this. We had a Zoom yesterday with some of one of our groups, and we talked about how quickly things flip bearish and or bullish. So this is interesting. Retail being more interested because they see the headlines on the news, or Bitcoin all-time high, ETH doing well too over the last few days and week or so, and greed index going up a bit. But still, this is not the I mean, again, we're not seeing extremely bullish catalysts yet when it comes to the macro, but this is good. This is what you want to see. And then let's have a look at this one. Barcelona investigates NFT scams. So remember in the previous cycle, I actually didn't look at this piece of news here. Ooh, pretty big names here involved. So the playbook really to raise money on these NFT plays was you get like a few big footballer names, soccer in this case, for all our American friends here, and they get a percentage of, they get an upfront payment usually for the NFT project, and then they get either the NFTs, a bunch of NFTs, or just a percentage of what the NFTs make, sell, etc. So basically, different levels of financial arrangements, and you can find this online too, because there's a lot of leaks about that too. Of course, when it comes to whenever there's money like this, there's also a lot of fraud. Not a lot, but like, look, with the amount of money coming into the NFT space in the last cycle, this is nothing new. It's almost surprising that it's taken them years to actually investigate this. This is what, 3-4 years ago, but I think it's good. I think it's actually very bullish to see this. And then back to stablecoins, Fortune 500. This is a big headline. Fortune 500 interest in stablecoins triples. Businesses eye payment innovation. So Coinbase released this State of Crypto reports. You can all read it. 29% of surveyed leaders, and this is Fortune 500 companies, right? Fortune 500 executives. 29% of them said that their companies are either planning to use stablecoins or are actively evaluating stablecoins, whereas a year ago it was 8%. So again, stablecoins definitely one of the biggest narratives and use cases, not just narratives, but like use cases when it comes to crypto. So this will only grow. This will only grow. I've had really very bullish conversations when it comes to stablecoins with people in the know who work and literally advise not just companies, but politicians and states and countries when it comes to what to do with stablecoins, because it is a touchy subject too, right? I mean, how do you allow stablecoins? Does it replace your, like, to what extent can people use it to buy groceries, to pay taxes, to pay for day-to-day expenses, right? And of course that cuts out banks, because banks make money on fees. Credit, MasterCard, Visa make money on fees, interest rates, and everything. So it's like, where does this new asset class, where do stable coins fit in? Thank you, Goodall, for reposting the stream. Repost this. We'll have our guests join us in a few minutes. But yes, this is, again, very bullish. I think this is up only in terms of stablecoin usage and interest. And then one last piece of news coming from South Korea. Again, stablecoin. South Korea moves to license stablecoin issuers. Keep in mind that Luna, the founder of Luna, is South Korean, but I don't think South Korea liked having one of the top stablecoins of the last cycle, with Luna USD crashing to zero. So I think this is, and South Korea has always been very proactive when it comes to crypto, and also just tech in general. So this is what you want to see. You want to see countries making a move. This is very interesting. And despite this kind of choppy price action, definitely up than, a bit more bullish than a few weeks ago. We're not at 150 or 200 or 200,000 plus when it comes to Bitcoin, but this is what you want to see. You want to see countries and companies showing strong interest when it comes to the asset class. All right, so let's have a look at. I'm going to check in with the team here. We will take a quick 2-minute break, and we will come back with Chris, and we will talk about Bitcoin. We'll talk about savings. We'll talk about retiring with Bitcoin. I have a lot of questions, and again, it's going to be the show now. It's I have a list of questions. Oftentimes, I have them on this screen, but we usually go with the flow. So stay tuned. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Hey, Matthias here, and if you're enjoying this and want access to even more alpha, early stage deals and opportunities, and also behind the scenes insights on the markets, hit the link in the description and make sure you're subscribed. It's free and it puts you ahead of the curve. Let's get back to the show. All right, welcome back to the show. We have Chris Kline, who is backstage. Chris, give me a thumbs up and I will add you to the stage. Adding now.
Hey, Matt.
Hey, there you are. How's it going? Welcome.
Wonderful. Sorry, I'm in this desolate room. I just moved into my new house in Arizona, and I haven't unpacked anything in a week. But I tried my best to get my pseudo studio set up for us today.
No, all good. How's it going?
Good. How about yourself, man?
Good. Very excited to talk about all things Bitcoin. We've had some really amazing guests on the show from all walks of life, working, and we're not maximalists. We this is a safe place for maxis and also non-maxis. So we're open to our audience is open to, of course, Bitcoin, because without Bitcoin there is no crypto. But you
By the way,
very
full
much
disclosure, not a maxi either. And the only reason we're Bitcoin IRA is because when we started this a decade ago, Bitcoin was the only coin available for retirement.
Yeah. So let me read a very short bio that I have, but then I want you to expand, tell us the story and everything, and then we'll just go with the flow.
Wow, sounds great.
So Chris Kline is the co-founder and chief revenue officer at Bitcoin IRA, with nearly a decade of experience helping Americans incorporate Bitcoin and digital assets into their retirement planning. His expertise lies in democratizing access to crypto-backed, self-directed IRAs and delivering education, trust, and transparency to long-term investors. That is the bio. So, in your words, the stage is yours. Who is Chris Kline?
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, it's so weird to hear somebody read something about you while you're sitting there. It's kind of like getting accolades for in front of people. It's always awkward. No, for me, I'm a Colorado born and raised, Denver, Colorado. Went to high school in Aurora. Went to college at the University of Colorado. Go Buffs, if anybody's from there. And about, let's see, now 13 years ago, I packed a one-way ticket in a suitcase and headed off to the wonderful world of Los Angeles to stake my claim. Go west, young man. I felt like I was like gold prospector. Ended up being a Bitcoin prospector, I suppose. And started really learning about retirement space when I got out there. I had worked in a couple of other startups in Denver, but I came out of college in the worst time possible, 2007, 2008, when they weren't hiring anybody, no matter how good your degree was. We were right in the heart of the recession. So started with real estate and IRAs, LLCs and IRAs, private equity, precious metals, all these alternatives, because my partners and I really, we kind of honed in on this reality that we are in a retirement crisis in America. It's the last thing people think about. They're not saving as much as they used to because everything's more expensive. Corporations aren't matching or offering 401ks at the same pace they used to. Pensions are kind of a thing of the past. And we're in a gig economy where a lot of folks are 1099 income. And so they don't have really a corporation to do these things. And we are at a point where it's not only are people not saving enough, but it's getting more expensive for retirement. Northwest Mutual had a piece come out mid last year, about a year ago. They studied these folks about, I think it was like 2,000 respondents, of how much do they think they need to retire. And back in 2018, they spoke to them, and it was about 550,000 they thought that they needed. And fast forward to post-COVID, through everything, they did it again last year in 24. And then that short time period, it was people have now think they need $1.5 million to retire. And nobody was ready for 500, and they're not ready for 1.5, because this isn't our grandfather's economy. And a piece of the modern portfolio theory needs to be alternatives. And so that's kind of been our mission as partners, as a company, is to help Americans retire. And we came across Bitcoin. It came across our desk in 2015. Had never heard about it. I had to get orange pilled, go down the rabbit hole. And we went to market a year later after building our solution. So, and then of course, we were 2016, we were early in the space. We're the first to do this. And then we've been through all of it. I didn't have any gray hairs when I started this. I've been through my bears, I've been through my bulls. And it's a really great program to impact people's retirement planning.
Yep. So what is, by the way, we have not been paid by Bitcoin IRA. This is not a promotional segment. This is just, Chris talking about everything. And of course, if he's involved with Bitcoin IRA and of course the CRO, Chief Revenue Officer, we'll be talking about Bitcoin IRA. So what is Bitcoin IRA for those who don't know?
So it's the same as if you go to Fidelity or TD Ameritrade or Schwab and you open up a traditional, a Roth, a SEP, or a simple IRA. But instead of being able to put paper products like stocks, ETFs, bonds, mutual funds, you can have direct investment in up to, I think there's now 80 different cryptocurrencies available on the platform. And they're stored in segregated insured wallets for you. And so you go log in, you have 24/7 access. It's really like your IRA exchange. You're able to log in, access, add funds, and also trade as you'd like, swap as you'd like. And here's the beauty. If you do any of this in a non-IRA environment, so if you have a coin that's a favorite, I know a lot of guys I talk to are really excited about Ondo or some of the other smaller coins out there. And that skyrockets. If you do that outside of retirement savings, you're going to have a hefty tax bill. Even just Bitcoin itself, if it goes up from where it's at today to maybe 180 is my target for this year and beyond, we get to $1 million Bitcoin, you're going to have to pay either a short or long-term capital gains implication.
Yeah.
The government gave us IRAs back in the 1970s to incentivize savings. They gave us this advantage of either lowering your tax bill as you contribute, or contributing without that advantage, but getting tax-free growth and tax-free distribution when you get older. So for a bull or a very big believer in Bitcoin or the cryptos, it's an ideal environment to build out your long-term savings in a long-term holding pattern that gives you that tax umbrella savings around you.
Yep. When did you join? Are you a founder, co-founder? Like
co-founder.
So co-founder from day one, or did you
day
one?
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
Yep.
What was the idea basically? Like, how did everything, you talked about, like, of course, the retirement crisis in the US, which, by the way, I saw a tweet the other day that I think it was 30-40% of Americans don't have more than $200 today for a medical emergency, right?
Yep.
I don't know exactly the number. It was around a third. Yep. And if you go up to, and then of course it was even higher for those who don't have $1,000 or $2,000 for a more expensive emergency.
It's like, I think almost over half of Americans are one emergency away from bankruptcy, or one paycheck cycle away from being in some big trouble. And our personal debts are higher than they've ever been. Discover just came out with a report, and we have some of the highest credit account balances we've had since the 2008 era. And so, the world's just getting more expensive. What's the last thing you think about? You've got your rent, mortgage, you've got to put food on the table, you got to pay your car bill, you got to pay your insurances, you got to pay your student loans. Almost all of us have some kind of student loan payments, and those just kick back in for a whole bunch of folks this year with the changes. The last thing people are thinking about is their retirement. Oh, how am I going to save longer term, or just a simple emergency savings fund? And so, so the idea was, true, if you're going to start saving, say, like, I'm actually running this data set right now. I'm not done. I wish I was ready for it, but I was waiting on this last piece. But boomers, and nothing against the boomers out there. I'm a millennial, but they kept telling us kids, if you just didn't go to Starbucks every day and didn't get your avocado toast every day,
I
you
love
could.
those shows. It's usually like NBC Money, NBC
Yeah. Yeah.
Millennials. Like,
Dave Ramsey's of the world.
yeah,
If you just cut these two things out, yeah, that's true. So I
that's
did the
true.
math. If for the last 10 years, if I was spending $7.50 at Starbucks and say $10 modestly on avocado toast every day, I would have saved in 10 years about $65,000. But there's a kicker to that, because if you take, inflation is not a one and done thing. It's a cumulative component. So if you take inflation over the last 10 years, it's roughly 30% inflation cumulative. So now you got to chop 30% of purchasing power off that 66,000. So now you really only have the purchasing power of, say, 40,000. The median home price is around $400,000 today in America. You need 80,000 for a down payment. You're nowhere close, and you did exactly what the boomers said to do. Stop drinking coffee, do your coffee at home, and don't do your avocado toast. You can't. It's only half right. You can't just save. You have to invest. And one of the greatest, in my opinion, one of the more cutting edge alternatives that got me excited about Bitcoin in particular is this is an asset class that cannot be overprinted. This is an asset class that can't be destroyed. And so if you're looking for, and I was crazy for saying this 10 years ago, if you're looking for a store of value for long-term savings, Bitcoin makes sense. There's 21 million. It's a finite supply. It's scarcity. And so that really is what drove it. And we put it to market, and our early adopters were a lot of, I call them my engine nerds, former NASA, Intel, IBM, guys that were on the cutting edge of technology that said, hey, I've got this old 401k or IRA that I'm thinking about doing something with. And this is before even ETFs existed or any futures or anything. And this just made sense for them. And actually our first client, oddly enough, was the former director of the United States Mint, Edmund C. Moy. He was a friend of ours from another project we had done. Yeah. And he was a friend of mine from another project we had done. And I called him up and said, hey, do you want to be the first person to have Bitcoin in your retirement plan? And he got really excited about it. And it was funny to me because it's like, arguably at that time, he was responsible for the largest production of currency. We were doing a lot of stimulus back in 08, 09 when he was in the mint. Now we do it even at exponential. That's pittance compared to what they do in COVID or what they're doing right now while we're talking with secret QE and things like that. And so, that's what really drove it for us. And people looking for, you can't survive off of the 60-40 bonds, stocks, mutual funds anymore. You have to expand into the alternative space. And there's so many options in self-directed IRAs. Bitcoin is one thing we do. A lot of folks do real estate, LLCs, private equity, precious metals. We even have a guy that he buys John Deere tractors with his IRA and leases them out to farms in Kentucky. And that passive income on the lease payments goes into his IRA and grows it over time. And then when he then sells off the tractor, gets new ones. He manages it like a tractor business within his IRA. And it's a new age way of thinking about savings and investing.
Yeah. Who was the ideal initially, right? Of course, now it's, if you started in 2015, the appetite in general is just very different to what we're seeing now. Yeah. Who was the ideal? So you mentioned really old school tech guy. Like what was the pitch basically, aside from that one investor? But how many investors did you get in? How many clients in year one? How was go-to market like?
Oh yeah, it was fun. I mean, we actually, a lot of times you have to go and spend a whole bunch on marketing at the beginning. And we just started. So we dropped a press release that we announced it. Got a bunch of phone calls. Then we did another press release. It was funny. Like you think about the thresholds you celebrate as a business. When we got our first $100,000 of assets under custody, there was another press release, and we got to $500,000 and our first $1 million. And it took about 6 months to get that first $1 million. And then we were in the perfect space because in 2017, everything started to heat up, right? Bitcoin, our first Bitcoin buyer was at $250 a Bitcoin. And very quickly, within less than a year, we were now knocking on 10,000 and then 20,000's door that in that cycle from Thanksgiving to Christmas that year. But really what we did is we listened to these people because we didn't know. Sometimes you have something so special and it's rare as an entrepreneur. I've had a lot of failed companies. Any entrepreneur will tell you this. You strike out a lot. Your batting average is worse than the best in the MLB. And to have something like this that just had this organic, beautiful growth to it. Still today, over, I'd say 30% of our new accounts that come in every day are from clients referring other friends and family. And that's just because we focus on real crypto, real people. So we try to make sure that this isn't a one size fits all thing. Everybody's retirement's different. They've got 401ks here, 403bs there, TSPs, all these things. And we have real people. So like if you actually call us or go and check out the website, you can talk to a human about your retirement in crypto. It's not a robot or a chatbot or anything like that. Now, what I love, Matt, is that this is the target demographic for crypto in general is an ever evolving space. So yes, the engine nerds and the tech guys were the ones looking at it years ago. But now we see, as a financial services guy for over a decade, I see a higher percentage of women involved in Bitcoin than I've ever seen in any other asset class. You see kids that are just starting their retirement. So they just started making income and they're putting their $5,000 or $7,000 of contribution in every year. You've got folks, because job changes happen all the time, that have left an old job and they're looking for something to do with that old 401k. I always joke that your 401k is like your favorite hoodie. You don't leave it at your ex-girlfriend's house. You bring it with you, right? And so, and it's just an ever expanding group of folks from, obviously the sweet spot is probably 35 to 55, but we have people that are already into retirement that are saying, shoot, I might outlast my retirement. What do I need to do? And fixed income, with rates where they're at, they're really not trickling down to the average Joe. You're not able to live off the interest like you used to years ago. So they have to find alternatives. They have to try something and take a piece so that they can continue to expand their retirement timeline, basically.
Yep. None of the banks wanted to touch Bitcoin 10 years ago, right?
It was tough.
What was some of the first, I'd say, growth spurts as you built the business, right? Could you correlate that to Bitcoin price action? How was the influx if you look back over the last 10 years in terms of growth?
So growth first year was steady and stable. It was a pretty straight line. We went exponential when the market runs. Anybody in crypto will tell you that you go exponential as far as new business coming and new growth. So we used to celebrate $1 million in that first year. And actually we're up to 14 billion with a B now of assets under custody. And that's not just dollar for dollar, that's growth too. People that bought Bitcoin at 1,000 still hodling today at 106, I think it is today. There's these waves.
Crazy.
There was waves in 21, there was waves in 17, 18, but then there's also the bear markets. Something that was very surprising to me was that that folks have much more intestinal fortitude for the dips over time. So when Bitcoin went from we hit 20,000 that first year in 17, and then it dropped down to 6,000, I thought, oh my God, we're done. Everybody's just going to sell their stuff and leave. And they didn't. There's a real strong vindication in the crypto audience space of this is part and parcel to the process. These are I call them adolescent teenage assets. They're growing. They're going to be a little volatile, and people have the appetite and they can handle those things, which is if say I was holding a stock that dropped 20% and everybody was, the odds are people are just going to cut and run from that. Now, that doesn't mean everybody stays. There are panic sellers in every market space. Right?
Sure.
But it's been interesting to watch that growth and then not the existing client base growing. We have 200,000 users now. And the fact that every year you get that opportunity to contribute more to your IRA every year. And you should take advantage of it because you can only do it every year, right? With the deadline April 15th and you don't have to do it on April 15th, but you have your deadline every year. And if you don't do that, you're just leaving basically tax deferred money on the table every year.
Yeah, maybe for the international audience here, explain in a few sentences, how does it work? How does the IRA system work in the US?
Yeah, so but there's two parts to it. So there's the employee sponsored, which is where I work for somebody and I contribute, they match, and it's typically done in either a 401k, which is the most popular, or there's 403bs, which is for like nurses, teachers, firemen, 457s, police officers, and there's still some groups that do pensions. Some large corporations have pensions or profit sharing plans. So that's one half is your employee sponsored plans. The other half is your individual retirement plans, where the government gives us the ability to contribute. If you're under 50, it's 7,500. If you're over 50, it's 8,000 every year, and that keeps kind of going up with inflation. When I first started doing IRAs, it was 5,500. So they keep raising that bar. And you can do that directly from your savings account and contribute it into an IRA. And that's really, so you get two sides of that. There's no, so if you're in Europe, there's RSPs, which are usually state sponsored, Canada the same. And so it's a little bit different in the US. We're that bootstraps world, right? Die hard capitalists. We left to our own accords. And that's part of the reason why we have a retirement crisis, because these things aren't working like they used to, or they were intended to be.
Yeah, I actually wanted to talk about retirement too. What's the driver for the US being so, of course, you have the other extreme in Europe, like the Scandinavian countries, right, where taxes are even higher than in some of the US states, but everything is more social, right? So healthcare is one, dental care, even kindergarten even is not even subsidized, but just free. Why is the US in such disarray when it comes to the whole retirement system, and why is it getting worse?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, we're definitely not like European nations where taxes are still high, right? Especially in certain states. You can be, if you're California or New York, you're getting pretty close to 50 cents on the dollar that you're paying out in taxes. It's not a focus. These tools were put in place it was all built under the premise of large corporations, just like investing was. My grandfather could buy GE and like 2 or 3 stocks and hold them for 20 years and retire off of those investments. The world today is so much different. It's evolving so fast. And I think where we get into disarray is rising cost. Our inflation is definitely, I think everybody's inflation is out of control, but you feel it in the pinch when you're trying to save. And it's not state sponsored. We go back and forth of, right now we have this, we've had the Reagan years, and then we had the Clinton years, and then we had the Bush years, the Obama years. So we keep swinging this pendulum, which kind of puts the American middle class at risk. Like it's been squeezed out. It's very, when I was a kid, if you made $100,000 as a family, you were wealthy. Today, $100,000 doesn't even afford a 2-bedroom apartment in most states. And so rising costs, I think, is the biggest thing, and not managing those. And also wages aren't keeping up either. For a guy like me, and I'm an entrepreneur, I built my businesses, I write my paycheck. But for most of America, wages aren't keeping up. It's a very difficult thing because it's the last thing that's happening. It's the balance sheets are very profit focused. So it's a different world than Europe. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like the European. I like to travel there. I think you guys are amazing people. You have so much great. I'm a big history buff, so I love going to all the museums and the architecture and all those things. But it is a different way of life here in the United States, for sure.
Yeah. I was just looking for that meme. I remember seeing a meme probably 2-3 weeks ago saying that the making 6 figures, right, in the 90s is the equivalent today to making, so to match the same lifestyle, you would need to make around $240,000 a year. That is a 6-figure lifestyle, 6-figure cost back in the 90s. So I think that, but the perception of making 6 figures is still ingrained in being enough to provide for a family of 4, which today a lot of families can't even live on $100,000 in some of the most expensive states, right? So what's the solution? So of course, Bitcoin, saving, yes, but there is a limit, of course, to how much you can contribute when it comes to your IRA. So what can people do aside from contributing to an IRA?
Well, beyond the contribution is how you diversify your investments. So you could put your $7,500 in and just put it in a basic treasury fund interest bearing account, right? Like where you're making somewhere between 4 to 5. The problem with that is you're not keeping up with inflation. The target rate's at 3, but cumulatively you're barely basically breaking even against inflation. So when you get to that retirement stage, you're really not keeping up with inflation. You're actually losing purchasing power. So diversification is fundamental. You have to put in more than other alternatives, I suppose. And you have to have your components of, like, think about it just within crypto. Obviously, I look at Bitcoin's my big daddy. So I'll dabble in the alts. I've got some XRP, I've got some Ondo, I've got what did I recently have? Some Solana. And so when that alt season cycle hits later this year, I'll take profits off the table and I'll roll it straight into Bitcoin as my long-term hold. And then, there are great platforms like ours. We're launching a staking 2.0. So for 4 different coins, you can earn up to 7% interest in yield on your staking rewards. And the beauty of that, as your audience knows, is you're getting paid those rewards as the coin. So you're getting more of the coin you're already investing in. So it's looking for these other options. And then, I mean, if you want to go a step back, just as far as the savings in America, I'm always a proponent of financial literacy here. You don't have to live rich to be wealthy. Like there are smart moves you can make. I mean, when I first came across in that one-way ticket in a suitcase, when I was building my first business with my partners, I lived in a motel for a year while I did that. And not like there's like Motel 8, there's Motel 6. I was in Motel like -2. And nobody knew. I just kind of went to work. I walked over to the office. I didn't have a car or anything. But I mean, that's an extreme sacrifice to build wealth. But there's a lot of simple sacrifices. And I don't mean to sound like the boomers. Don't do your coffee and your avocado toast. But I think that as a society, I always try to preach this to my friends and family. It's like, you don't need the newest iPhone. You don't need the newest pair of Jordans or Nikes. You don't, like, there's a difference between needs and wants. And I think that has gotten across the globe, at least in a lot of places, out of whack as far as that perspective.
Yeah, I think it's funny because we're in the space, right, in crypto, and again, I come from the world of Web 1, Web 2. So yes, of course, in crypto now, but I built businesses outside of crypto for years before crypto. So crypto is such an interesting space in the sense that everyone, and you see the timeline every bull cycle, and you and I are a bit older than the teenagers here, and it's like, do you realize how much money it's costing you to flash and to pretend ultimately, right? Because you're not owning the assets that you're showing. It's one of these. It's one of the rare industries where showing is just worse than many others, right? And pretending. And so, of course, it comes back to a bear market where everything goes down, and of course they're in pain. So it's.
Well, I think what also everybody's guilty of this. There's a lot of emotion to crypto trading. There's a lot of greed and fear that comes into play. I've taken my losses on trades. I've taken some great gains on trades. What I've learned over my wisdom of my gray years is stick to DCA. Dollar cost average is key, and not just on the way in. You have to have a strategy on the way out. It's not just, okay, I've now accumulated 0.1 Bitcoin and Bitcoin hits this number and I'm just going to sell it all. No, you do the same thing on the way out. You find your peak, your target, and then you take, and if it took you 6 investments to get in, take 6 investments to get out, so that you don't have that remorse, that buyer or seller's remorse of, oh, I should have done more. Or, oh, like my favorite meme is the line of people, when Bitcoin's at 120 will be twice as long as it is right now at 106. I call it my Uber. They had they call it the shoe shine red light, the shoe shine light. I call it my Uber light, because when Bitcoin's in the tanker, Uber drivers, I walk around, I've got my logo on, I've got my backpack, I'm going places, we're traveling. Nobody wants to talk about Bitcoin when it's down, but man, everybody wants to know about it when it hits those highs. And it's like, that's the reverse of smart investing. And it's you have to mentally say, no, here's my goal. I want to get this much Bitcoin across this time period, and I'm going to do this increments of purchases. And you just do them at the same time, of the same day of the week, of the same day of the month that you intend on doing it, and you take all that emotion out of it. You're not trying to time the market. Now, I live in crypto, so I check the price of Bitcoin before I check my pulse in the mornings. But people don't need to
like
live
everyone here, by the way. Everyone here.
Sure.
What's the vision for Bitcoin IRA? Because AUM today is 13 billion. You said
14 billion. Yeah. 14. Well, it might be just under with the little dip over the last couple of days.
What's the vision for the company?
Long term, we want to continue to scale. We've been self-funded our whole time. We haven't taken any private equity or outside money. We want to continue to keep our principles, which is we want to have real crypto, real people. You know, I still have a total and a complete onboarding team that's been with me, most of them for 8-9 years. So we don't have a lot of turnover because people enjoy working here and helping people. We've got a full service team that's available Monday through Friday, even on Saturdays. And that's really made the difference for us as a business, is because we're not just some platform that you go and invest on. You have somebody that you're connected with. We in fact call every one of our clients on their birthday and their anniversary date of their account, and that's a lot of work. I actually had to build some AI robots to help with that a little bit. I couldn't and we're going to continue to use AI to streamline things. If you're not using AI in certain way on every facet of your business, you're going to fall behind. And then we're looking. We just a little sneak peek. We recently acquired, we've done some acquisitions, but we recently acquired the brand retired.com. And our model there is to take and really make it not, I don't want to sound like cliche, but in essence, tokenize the planet and allow more investing. You know, a lot of people want to get into some real estate, but they don't have the capital to do it inside their IRA, but they can tokenize those things and really streamline the future of alternative investing to help Americans keep up. And actually, I think they just launched the retirement score calculator last month on that site. And so it's kind of like you go get your credit score, you get your retirement score, and it helps you kind of plan where do I want to be? How much am I going to contribute? And then once you get your baseline score, there's things you can do to increase that score. Did you do your contribution for the year? Boom, you got an extra point. Did you add an alternative asset? Boom, you got an extra point. Did you take a financial literacy course or a financial planning course on the site? You get credit for doing those things. That's really where I see us as growing to the future, but not forgetting our roots, man. I mean, there's nothing better than the nostalgia of just sitting back and going, wow, I can't believe we were celebrating the first $100,000. And now it's, you know, we probably got that in new business in the time we've been talking times 10. It's just stick to doing the right things and good things come as a business.
So we've had a lot of guests here who are very well connected to institutions. Of course, you deal directly with high levels of AUM. With that comes also relationships with the financial world. What are you seeing and hearing? What alpha can you give people here when it comes to the way institutions think? Banks, funds, pension funds, basically the meme of the institutions are here. What are you seeing? What are you hearing?
Yeah, no, for me, I mean, biggest thing is that I've been through 2 bulls, 2 bears, and watched, institutions knocking on my door, saying, okay, can we white label this? Can we build this out, et cetera? And then the minute the market turns, they just disappear, right? Because they didn't really want to do this. They got enough phone calls that they had to figure out to placate their family offices or their high net worth individuals. Yes, we're figuring out how to give you access to these things, but they didn't really want to do it. This time around, they want to do it. And now I think what I'm noticing, just watching buying patterns, but institutions aren't like retail guys. They're not just going to go drop $100 million in a day. They do TWAPing. They spread things out. It's a lot harder to do with blockchain because, I mean, they could hide a lot of stuff on paper, but it's a lot harder to do with blockchain. They'll use OTC and those types they'll spread things around, but there's a race to reserve happening. And it's from the institutions all the way down to the individuals and nation states and those groups. I just got back from the Bitcoin conference in Vegas a couple weeks ago. And I was on Yahoo and I said, I'm noticing more sport coats than I've ever seen. It's my 4th Bitcoin conference. And I mean, I was even wearing a sport coat because there was so much of that happening. And they're looking at, they're diving in. Lending and staking is coming back full force. I know that 22, 23 with FTX, Alameda, all that scared away. And it was really poorly run. The rehypothecation, everybody was kind of incestuous with everybody. There was nobody that came away from that without some kind of injury through it. This is 2.0. A lot more of it's going to be, I think we don't have regulation around it yet, but it's coming. DeFi regulation is definitely coming. I think there's a lot of interest in stablecoins, XRP conversations, and how they're going to embed those things. But this time, and I've been wrong before, I think they're here to stay too. They're not just looking as tourists. They're now diving in and starting to look at, there's always been a lot of mining stuff at the conferences, but it was even more prevalent. I did notice the largest booth in the whole space besides Robinhood, which didn't have a great showing in my opinion. I think they were there, but it wasn't like just didn't feel to me like they were engaged was the Gemini credit card. That's really pushing. And actually, I applied for one just because why not? Why not earn Bitcoin while I do my regular day-to-day spending? Like, it just makes sense to me. Way better than rewards points on Amex. Like, what am I going to do with those? But I'd rather take the Sats. So yeah, that's my big thing. And then watch for, I think, we've been through IPO waves and syndication waves. Private equity kind of walked away from the space for a while. I think they're starting to come back in. I got to have dinner with the president of the U.S. eToro, Andrew McCormick, when I was out there, and they just finished a very successful IPO. Their strike was like 55, and they came out at, I think it was 66, 67. And he's the same. He's saying the same thing. It's like, okay, how do we? If we're the OGs of this space that have been around for a long time, how do we continue to show the leadership that is required to carry this industry forward? And that's really a big focus, I think, for a lot of executives behind the scenes in boardrooms now is we don't want a repeat of 22, 23. We know this is cyclical. We know that there's going to be probably within, I think, September, October is when we're going to start getting a little mania and FOMO that kicks in again. And then there will be a cool off. It'll go to one. My target is 180 for the year. I think that once it breaks like 125, 130, you're going to start getting a little bit more of that mania from the retail side. Unfortunately, that's when they're going to come. Not now, but that's just the nature of this beast. And then that'll drive us. And then I think there's a lot of acquisition and accumulation of crypto happening right now that is not yet being announced. GameStop's probably had acquired theirs long before they announced it because they kept it below the requirement for reporting. There's a lot of that happening, and any big institution, sovereign nation or state or country that's trying to accumulate wants to do it at the best price possible. So we expect to start seeing I call them mini micro strategies or mini strategies coming out ahead because it's working for him. But they're going to try different coins. Not everybody can do the same playbook of Bitcoin, right? There's only 21 million. So I wouldn't be surprised to see some Ethereum and some Solana treasury-based strategies ahead. But if you're a smart retail guy, you've already been dollar cost averaging, do as much as you can now because I really feel like this year, this is going to be a fun summer of alts. I think there's going to be some excitement with announcements, trade deals, etc. But this will be one of those Q4s that's just going to be, it's going to be fun. Like it's going to be wild.
Yeah, I think that you said something interesting about ETH, right? From the conversations we're having, there's really, Bitcoin, of course, right? Everyone's talking about Bitcoin, but the only, I'd say, of all the allocators when it comes to the institutional side, 90% it's of course Bitcoin, but then 90% is ETH. I'm not hearing much after ETH. And I think
and that's our book too. Of the 14 billion, we're 60, probably 65% Bitcoin, and the remaining, there's a big chunk of Ethereum. And Ethereum with staking coming back to life is also there. I feel like it's kind of on a revenge run. What did it got down to what, like almost 1,400 in
1,400.
April? And now it's knocking on 3,000's door. So that's a really interesting quick spin of turn of events. But let's not forget any OG that's been around. Why does Solana and these other groups, these other layers exist? These competitors exist. Well, congestion, gas prices. Just like we needed the Lightning Network for Bitcoin because we were having it. So every one of these, there's no protocol that is finished yet. Other than, in my opinion, Bitcoin is perfect, but I'm biased. But all the others, they have to.
I completely agree. They
have to continue to scale with the demands of the market space. And there's a lot of DApp development happening on Solana. There's a lot happening. All you need is 2 or 3 really solid winners in Web 4, Web 5 over there. And it could start. I don't see a flippening taking place. I think the conversation about flippening is over with. But yeah, that one definitely. I'm watching Ethereum very closely for the next couple of months.
Yeah, same. I think that, I think being tribal is actually a net negative. Of course, I agree with some of the points that the Bitcoin maxis say it's the best performing asset. Of course, that's undeniable. But, in some pockets of, especially on Twitter, it gets so toxic. It's like, you can it's more tribal than many supporters in some, and I don't know if you follow soccer, but if you go to South America, it is. It is as tribal as it gets, and it's like sometimes it's like it's okay. You can
the U.S. it's like that with the NFL.
Same.
I'm a Broncos fan, born and raised, and Raider fans and I just don't get along. That's the nature of the beast. But you're right. Tribal is net negative for sure,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
there's value add in every piece of this. And if
Yep.
it happens to be that XRP is bringing in a whole bunch of new entrants to the market space because
Yeah.
of what it's doing, that's good for all. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. A
Yep.
rising tide helps all boats. And so does a falling tide. So let's not forget that cuts both ways. We know that we've had, I mean, you see there will be hacks. There will be issues there will be things that break, and that hurts all of us. It doesn't nobody's immune to things that happen in the industry. It's as tribal as we are, we're still crypto guys at the end of the day,
Yep.
or gals, and we should remember that. I see it too. Some of this stuff on Twitter just gets so toxic. I'm at Senator Kline. If anybody wants to follow me, I don't have a lot of followers. I actually
we'll link everything around the episode and the articles for sure. Yeah.
I actually got that Twitter handle when I was in college in 2008. Because I thought I was going to be a senator someday. That was my plan, was I was going to be a senator. And right out of college, I actually worked on a campaign. I worked on the McCain-Palin campain, and got to see the inner workings of politics. And it made me, no thanks, not for me. Like I much more like to build new and crazy and innovative things. I'm not much for the appetite of bureaucracy and the games that are played. So, but that's where you'll find me. So no, I'm not a senator, but I wanted to be one day at one point in time.
It's someone from on the team asked, was he a senator? Is he a senator? I said, okay, let's dive in. Actually, that was one of the questions. So we have 2 questions left. One you actually answered. This is the question that everyone, I have to ask this question, is pure price action, but you already said your target this cycle in the next 6 or 12 months is 180.
Yep. That's, I think we might touch it. Last year I said in July, so around this time last year, just a couple weeks, I said 100K by Christmas Day was and we were sitting at, I think, like 45, 50, and everybody was looking at me, and I was like, you just get you get used to these waves, right? You do it enough times, you see the things happening. And this now, and I knew that was my prediction on that was that we were going to have a change of the guard for politics in the U.S., which we did, right? The election and up to inauguration. We actually, most of our clients that I did this study, we put it out with CNBC, was from an election day to inauguration. Our average client had a 63% growth in their portfolio on our platform, which is crazy. That's in a matter of 4 months. And I think that what we're going to see come out, remember, halving is the underbelly of all this. The halving cycle is undeniable. It happens every time. And you sprinkle on favorable conditions for crypto with the US. I'm curious to see if the European Union or IMF or World Bank start changing their tune. They're still kind of holding strong. But you just got this wave of adoption happening globally. It'll be interesting to see what China does too. They banned it at one point in time, but we know that there's node power. We know there's mining happening there. But there's this pendulum is swinging. It was very anti-crypto for a few years, and now I think there's going to be this wave, and eventually greed kicks in. So if Bitcoin hits to 130, you can imagine where some of these alts might be. ETH could be up at 4, maybe 5. XRP could hit to a couple dollars again, and then it's just whoosh. And that's what I think that catapults us to the 180 zone for Bitcoin.
No, I mean, I agree.
It'll go back down. It'll have its
retreat. I mean, that's, the bear will come back, of course. That being said, I don't think we'll see the huge price swings that we've seen over the last few years, just because the buyer type is different this cycle. But yes, I mean, someone will buy the top and will cry 6 months later. But that's the dues you have to pay to the market to learn.
But it wasn't like we weren't out here preaching the good word to everybody. I mean, I've done 1,500 interviews. This is my 57th of the year. Thank you for having me, by the way.
Very cool.
I love meeting like-kind folks. And we're out here, but people don't pay attention until, I was joking in Vegas, Ocean's 13, when they have they're making that earthquake with the drill, and they're trying to get everybody to run from the casino because of the earthquake. And the first one shakes, and then everybody starts gambling again. It's like, we're right in that space where 110, 112, if this was 2 years ago, people would be going nuts already. So we got to just hit them harder. And that the price action is going to be what hits them harder. Yeah,
I agree. They'll come back. Price action is unfortunately what gets people to buy or sell. Fundamentals don't exist. I mean, we do news reviews 2-3 times a week, and if you look at the headlines, it's been extremely bullish for the last 12 months, right? countries literally changing their laws, like antiquated laws being pro crypto now. Countries looking at not only buying Bitcoin but making it easier for the nation to buy, to hold, to invest, and people just are waiting, and they will buy the top again, and that's just how it is,
Yep. Argentina is a great example. I did a case study on El
Yep.
Salvador and Argentina a few years back for NASDAQ, and El Salvador, and what a great case study. I mean, just talk about turning that president. Everybody thought he was crazy. I met him. We met him all in Miami, right, a few years ago. But he stayed his course, and he's changed the lives of all of his citizens of his country. And he's setting a new legacy up there.
Yeah.
Argentina gets a call from the World Bank and IMF and says, if you do this, all your money's gone. And then they go through a hyperinflationary event, and now they're back at the table. They've got a young president, I think, just got elected or is running. And this is going to keep happening. Qatar, Zimbabwe, wherever. I made a parallel. Everybody talked about domino theory with the 1960s and communism from Southeast Asia, right? That was the reason America was in Vietnam, was we didn't want it to spread. We could go down a rabbit hole there, but I think that crypto adoption is going to spread in a similar fashion across continents, just like South America. From the heart of El Salvador, you're going to see it in a lot of places, and also across the African continent, and even in Southeast Asia at some point. Everybody's going to struggle with currency. This is the time. We've all abused them. We've beaten them. We've battered them. We've printed them to death. Everybody's guilty of it, and the rooster's going to come home at some point. And this is the reality on the wall.
Yep, completely agree. Last question here. What are you the most excited about? So we talked about a lot of things on the show here. What's something that gets your attention now? What are you interested in when it comes to this cycle?
For this particular cycle, I think what I'm really watching, because I'm a student of international finance and poli-sci and leadership. So I'm very interested to see how the race to reserve plays out. Who gets the most? It's kind of like oil reserves, gold reserves, rare earth metals, like the deal with China that Trump's working on right now, or finished yesterday. There's 21 million, 19 and a half of them are basically accounted for. When is supply shock going to happen? We're one cycle away from miners competing for less than 1 Bitcoin. And when we started this, it was 50 Bitcoin, right? So that is when I'm curious, when OTCs will liquidity start to dry up, and that human behavior is very interesting in scarcity. We've lived in a world of abundance because we just printed our way to abundance, right? Everybody gets a house, everybody gets a car, everybody gets the picket fence. That's America, and it's happening in other places too. When you have the scarcity event with an asset class we've never seen before. I think a lot of people don't even understand that concept. They think that just there'll be more Bitcoin. No, there will not be more Bitcoin. So I'm curious to see, as we get closer and closer, and as mining gets more difficult, what's that supply shock look like? That's what I'm really watching for. And at the same time, where you have a global wave of adoption happening, it's a perfect storm for just crazy things to happen.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a great way to end the show today. We'll definitely have you back, especially when we get to this more euphoric phase in the market. Chris, thank you for being on the show. We'll link everything, of course, Bitcoin IRA. We'll link your Senator Kline account too, so people could find you. Thanks for being on the show. Thank you everyone for joining. Any last any closing statement for today's show?
Well, first, thank you for having me, and I will come back anytime. A bear or bull market, I'm not afraid to hash it out. Like, that's the nature of the beast. I think, I've lived by a mantra for a long time, to be the change. And you can be your own change with your retirement planning, your savings, and try to talk to one person a day about crypto. Change somebody's mind every day. It's good for all of us, and it's good for them.
Yep. Wise words. Thank you everyone for joining, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Chris. Hey, thanks for watching. If you got value from this episode, you're going to love what's coming next. So subscribe now. We drop new episodes and videos several times a week featuring power players, market movers, and insiders from the financial world. And if you want access to deals and insights we only share privately, hit the links in the description, and we'll see you on the next show.